Raider Nation, what a day it has been. The Las Vegas Raiders have made 9 roster moves today. I know they showed up to training camp. Pete Carroll is getting busy. Coming up here on today's show, I am going to go through and I'm going to walk you guys and talk about all 9 of the Raiders roster moves. 5 signings, 4 cuts have happened. But this is why I want you guys to hit that subscribe button. It's why I want you to turn on your notifications. When breaking news happens around the Raiders, I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to talk about it from top to bottom. I want to be able to talk about analysis. I like being able to interact with y'all. And if you've been pulled up with us live, we've been live for almost 4 hours at this point. If you're a diehard Raiders fan, nobody's going to keep you more up to date than the Raiders Report. So first off, let's talk about the 2, we'll call them maybe biggest moves that have happened today. And I would say the signing of Jamal Adams is probably the biggest. Also, the Raiders went out. They signed Phillip Dorset. So that's 2 of the moves. We still got 3 more to talk about. The reason why the Raiders decided to bring in Jamal Adams, I think, is the overall coaching connection with him and Pete Carroll. Again, they were together for 4 years in Seattle. I'll admit, I don't love the signing of Adams, quite frankly. I think the 5 players that the Raiders signed, if you were to tell me 1 out of the 5 ends up making the roster, I'd probably give that 2 just win babies if I'm being totally transparent. Now, Adams has had some injury issues over the past, which has been very well noted. He's also had some off-the-field issues as well, which I have said multiple times on this show, and I don't know if he's all that of a great human being, but he does add some more depth to this safety room, which maybe that's what the Raiders are looking for. Maybe they're looking for a little bit of extra competition with some of these younger safeties, but I'll tell you this, for a guy like Chris Smith, for a guy like Trey Taylor, for a guy like Hudson Clark, the signing of Jamal Adams has got to make you a little bit nervous. Let's go to another move here that the Raiders decided to make today, and they're going to go out, they're going to sign wide receiver Phillip Dorset. Now, Dorset is an 8-year NFL veteran, and to me, when I think of Phillip Dorset, I think of his, honestly, as some of his years with the New England Patriots. I think of some of his years even with, like, the Indianapolis Colts very early on in his career. But to me, you always got to talk about connections, and he played multiple seasons with Tom Brady in New England. The 2 years that he played with Tom Brady, he had 32 catches. He had only 18 catches. But this is somebody that has worked with Brady, and we know how important that those type of relationships are. In 2019 on the New England Patriots, he had 29 catches for 397 yards. Last season, did not play in the NFL, but in 2023 was a member of the Denver Broncos, and we know that the Raiders brought over Brian Stark in that front office. In 2021, he was on the Seattle Seahawks where he played in 2 games, had only 1 catch, so there's a little bit of overlap there with Pete Carroll. Another move that the Raiders made was going out and getting cornerback J.T. Woods. Now, for a player like Woods, he is long, he's lanky, and that's the reason why this move was made. We know Pete Carroll values athletic corners, and J.T. Woods is a very athletic corner who ran a 4.36 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. And it's funny, though, Pete Carroll a few hours ago was talking about how confident he was in some of these younger corners, and now he goes out and adds some guys, veterans, in that secondary. Another move that the Las Vegas Raiders made, signed offensive guard Antonio Mafi, and his connection comes with Chip Kelly. Played 4 years at UCLA from 2018 to 2022. I'll be transparent. The Mafi numbers, they're not very good. He did not play last season, and in the year of 2023, he was a player that had about 468 snaps, played predominantly at left guard, did play a few at right guard, had a very low overall PFF score of 32.3, but I think that this is just more competition to be able to add to this offensive line, which is what this Raiders team is trying to do. Another move that the Raiders decided to make, they signed wide receiver Seth Williams, 6'2", 211 pounds, played college football at Auburn. Last played in the NFL in 2021. I will say this, he was at least on a few practice squads, and the team that he played for in 2021 was the Denver Broncos. And anytime you hear Denver draft, again, you got to think of Brian Stark, who the Raiders recently brought in. But he was recently on the DC Defenders and didn't really get a lot of playing time even on the Defenders. I know right now some of y'all are probably looking at that depth chart. Zakhari Franklin, we'll talk about him in a moment. He was one of the players that the Raiders just cut, so in the 9 roster moves that the Raiders made. We will break that down here in just a moment. But Seth Williams, a wide receiver, was added. So right now, as it stands, we got a safety, a cornerback, 2 wide receivers, an offensive guard. Those are the 5 moves that the Las Vegas Raiders have made so far today in terms of adding to the roster. But what's really important is going into today, the Raiders could have added 1 player. And I'll talk about the cuts after I talk to you guys about this awesome deal. Ashton Jeanty jerseys, they are on sale. You can go to chatsports.com/Jeanty, and if you buy the jersey right now, you're going to be able to save $26 on today's program. This deal might not be available tomorrow. It might not be available an hour from now. I don't know. Depends how many Raiders fans are taking advantage of this deal. Chatsports.com/Jeanty. That link's down in the comments, and it's going to be down in the description of today's program. So let's go to the moves that the Raiders also had to make, because again, the Raiders, by them adding player after player after player, they had to move on. So because the Raiders signed 5 players, they had to cut 4. Mello Dotson, he was a UDFA cornerback from Kansas. I'm actually a little bit disappointed at that one. Out of all these names on here, he was the one that I was probably the most excited about, and quite frankly, he was the one that I'm a little bit most shocked about. Zakhari Franklin, he was a UDFA wide receiver from Illinois. He actually was somebody that Dante Thornton Jr. in our latest interview that I did with him last week, it was actually not last week, 2 weeks ago, on July 10th, he mentioned Zakhari. He's a good blocker. Not the most athletic player, but that's somebody that gets moved on from. Keyshawn Smith, he was somebody that was added after the NFL draft, right around Raiders rookie minicamp. And then Jailin Walker, UDFA linebacker from Indiana. Those are the 4 roster moves that the Raiders had to make. Now, some of you might be going, well, Mitch, don't we have an extra roster position because of Christian Wilkins? I just want to say this again. Christian Wilkins still counts towards that 90-man roster. He's on the PUP list. I get it. In the regular season, he would not count. At this current time in this offseason, he still counts towards the Raiders' 90-man roster, technically 91. So Mello Dotson, he unfortunately ended up getting cut today. Jailin Walker, he unfortunately ends up getting cut today at the linebacker position. And now, as it stands right now, the Raiders' 9 roster moves that they made today. They signed Jamal Adams, safety. They signed cornerback J.T. Woods, wide receiver Phillip Dorset, wide receiver Seth Williams, guard Antonio Mafi, and they waived cornerback Mello Dotson, Zakhari Franklin, Keyshawn Smith, and Jailin Walker. I have been live on this channel now for getting close to 4 hours, and my pledge that I'll always say is we're always going to have a good time. We're always going to have fun, but I will always do my best to be able to keep you guys up to date. The fact that the Raiders training camp did start today, I anticipated a move or two to end up going down overall, but this is a flurry of moves. And I think what Pete Carroll is always going to try to do is he's going to try to wake some guys up, and I think he wants to be able to give opportunities. Like the signing of Phillip Dorset, the signing of Jamal Adams to me are very similar to the signing of a Devin White, where these are probably guys that this organization believes in just in terms of the people, the players that they are. And if they show up healthy, if they show up motivated, then they're going to get not only for them, they have some upside. I don't really think that they do. Maybe the Raiders think that. That's what I'm saying. But you're also going to have to try to get extra competition after some of those younger players. So I got to know down below, A, B, C, D, or F. I want you to grade the Raiders' moves today. A, you absolutely love all of them. B, these are good moves. C, it's average. D, it's bad. F, it's a big old fat fail. For me personally, I'll just say for where we are in the offseason, me as a content creator, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today, which I appreciate. I'm probably going to go C minus D plus, though, because I'll be real with you. I don't think that any 5 of these players makes the roster. If I had to guess which one do I think is the most likely, I'll say Jamal Adams. But if we were talking about just win babies, I'd probably give 2 just win babies, maybe 1 just win baby, on the chance that even 1 out of the 5 players ends up making the roster. I'm confident in the Raiders wide receiver room, so for Seth Williams and for Phillip Dorset, I don't think that they make it. At the cornerback position, I don't see J.T. Woods making it. Safety, Jamal Adams. Like, if the Raiders keep a guy like Jamal Adams over a Trey Taylor, shame on you, because I don't know how you keep a guy like Jamal with some of the off-the-field shit that he's done, where then you have a very stand-up human being in Trey Taylor. And then with Mafi, I get that he's got the connection, but he's not going to be somebody that you keep over the 2 rookies that you drafted. He's not better than Thayer Munford. So overall, to me, these are players that are just extra depth bodies for Raiders training camp, which kicks off tomorrow, where they put on the pads.